Aiden had been on the space station for 2 weeks now, and he still wasn't used to the dizzying mix of colors, noises, and scents that filled the air. The space station was an enormous hub, floating in the endless depths of the galaxy, where humans, aliens, and other species coexisted. Some people might have found it overwhelming, but to Aiden, it was exciting. Though, at times, he wished he could just disappear into the background and not feel the pressure of his new role as a diplomat. The humans and aliens that crowded the station were always in motion, and Aiden couldn't help but notice the strange beauty of the place. The walls of the station shimmered with various alien materials, creating patterns and textures he had never seen before. People from countless different worlds bustled by, wearing outfits that reflected their home planets, fabrics glowing with light, metals that bent to the shape of the wearer, and colors that Aiden didn't even know existed. It was a place full of life, energy, and hidden stories. Today, he had been asked to attend a diplomatic event in one of the grand halls, a large open area where people could mingle and discuss intergalactic matters. Aiden had no idea how he'd gotten chosen to be the representative for humans at such a big event. He wasn't a leader or a senator. He was just a young diplomat fresh out of his training, tasked with navigating this alien world. But even in the midst of the grand conversations and important talks, his attention was caught by someone he hadn't expected. Across the room, standing near a small group of diplomats, was an alien woman. Her features were striking. Something about her stood out even in such a crowded room. She had skin that was a pale shade of violet, with shimmering silver highlights that moved like light on the surface of a calm sea. Her eyes were deep and glowing, reflecting the stars that twinkled in the space beyond the station. Her name was Zara, Aiden later learned. She was a princess from a distant planet, an elite race known for their beauty and powerful intellect. But there was something more to her than just her appearance. As Aiden observed her from across the room, he could sense an air of quiet confidence that seemed to follow her wherever she went. She wasn't just pretty, she carried herself like someone who knew exactly how to control her surroundings. Aiden couldn't help himself. He'd heard a lot about the elegant, reserved nature of Zara's people, and yet, in that moment, he found himself completely captivated. She was stunning, unlike anyone he'd ever seen before. He tried to keep his distance, but his eyes kept drifting back to her, mesmerized by her calm, almost ethereal presence. Eventually, the crowd started to thin out, and Aiden found himself standing near the group where Zara had been talking. As luck would have it, she walked toward him and their eyes met. It felt like time slowed down for a moment. He could see the faint glow in her eyes as she smiled politely, and Aiden instinctively stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I haven't had a chance to introduce myself yet. I'm Aiden. I'm a diplomat here from Earth." Zara tilted her head slightly, a curious expression crossing her face. "Ah, Earth," she said, her voice soft yet clear. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Aiden." Aiden was taken aback by how effortlessly graceful she was, even in the simplest of movements. His nerves, usually well hidden, flared up as they exchanged a few words. He wasn't sure why he felt this way, but her presence seemed to affect him in a way he couldn't explain. Perhaps it was the fact that she was a princess, or the fact that she exuded a kind of strength and grace that most people could only dream of. Either way, Aiden found himself strangely drawn to her. As they spoke, Aiden's mind wandered. He couldn't help but notice how beautiful she was, how every word she spoke seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 unspoken thoughts. But then, at some point, he did something he didn't expect. Without thinking, he blurted out, "You're gorgeous." The words left his mouth before he could even stop them. He realized, too late, how forward he had been, and his face immediately flushed. He tried to recover, but the damage was done. Zara blinked, her expression shifting as she processed his words. Aiden watched her carefully, feeling an uncomfortable heat rise in his cheeks. He had always been a bit awkward around people, especially women, but this felt different. Zara was unlike anyone he had ever met. She wasn't just another diplomat or visitor. She was royalty, an important figure in her world. But to Aiden's surprise, something unexpected happened. Zara's face, which had been serene just moments ago, changed color. Her skin, already a pale violet, shifted to a deep shade of red, a reaction that seemed almost out of place on her otherwise calm demeanor. She looked surprised, perhaps even flustered. Aiden blinked, unsure of what he should say next. He didn't want to offend her, but he had never seen someone react like that before. In all his diplomatic training, he had never been taught how to handle a situation like this. Zara, however, quickly recovered, and with a playful smile she tilted her head. "Say it again." Aiden froze for a second. His heart raced, and his mind raced even faster. He wasn't sure if she was just teasing him or if she was genuinely interested. But the way she said it, with that teasing tone in her voice, made his stomach do a flip. I mean. "You're really stunning," Aiden stammered, trying his best to make himself sound confident. Zara smiled, the red hue of her skin slowly fading back to its normal color, though her eyes still held a playful spark. "Thank you, Aiden," she said, her voice now laced with a warmth that made him feel both nervous and relieved. "You're very kind." The conversation continued, but Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Zara, the distant and regal princess, was now standing in front of him with a smile, her teasing comment leaving a strange connection between them. Was it just a fluke, or was there something deeper to this encounter? Aiden didn't know, but he couldn't help but wonder if this was the start of something entirely unexpected. Zara's teasing smile lingered in his thoughts long after their conversation ended. She had caught him off guard, and that simple moment, a single word, had changed the dynamic between them. Aiden, now aware of his attraction to her, felt the tension building, unsure of what would come next. Was he just another diplomat to her, or was there more to their brief interaction? As Zara turned to join her group of fellow diplomats, Aiden couldn't help but watch her go. His mind raced with questions, and his heart beat a little faster. There was no way to know for sure, but one thing was clear. This encounter was far from over. The days following their first meeting seemed to stretch on forever. Aiden couldn't stop thinking about Zara. Every time he entered the grand halls of the space station, he found himself looking for her, hoping for another chance to talk. But every time, he couldn't find the courage to approach her. He had never been good at this kind of thing. The words he had said to her, simple, casual words, had left him both proud and embarrassed at the same time. It was as if that one moment had changed everything. Zara had left a lasting impression on him, and Aiden couldn't shake the feeling that she felt the same way. Her teasing smile haunted him, and every time he closed his eyes, he could still see her red face when he had called her gorgeous. It wasn't just a fluke. Zara had reacted to his words in a way that made him wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was more between them than just formal pleasantries and diplomatic conversation. Weeks passed, and Aiden tried his best to focus on his duties. There were always meetings to attend, reports to write, and messages to deliver to the various alien factions that had made their home on the space station. But despite his best efforts, he always found his thoughts drifting back to Zara. He would catch glimpses of her in the hallways, surrounded by other diplomats and dignitaries, but she always seemed so far away. She was royalty, and he was just a young human diplomat, a person with no real power or influence. They didn't belong in the same world. Yet despite the vast difference in their social status, every time their eyes met, Aiden felt a flicker of something between them. It was subtle, but it was there. Zara would give him a small smile, a look that seemed to say, "I remember you." One day, as Aiden was walking through one of the station's quieter sections, he saw her again. This time, she was alone, standing by a window that looked out into the dark expanse of space. Her hands were clasped behind her back, and she gazed out at the stars with a contemplative expression. The sight of her took Aiden by surprise. He hadn't expected to see her here, away from the crowds and the formality of the diplomatic events. Without thinking, he walked toward her. As he drew closer, Zara turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his. The brief moment of recognition passed between them, but this time, it wasn't a polite, distant acknowledgement. It felt more personal, like they were finally seeing each other for who they truly were. "Hello, Aiden," Zara said softly, her voice warm. She seemed more relaxed than the last time they had spoken. "I didn't expect to see you here." Aiden felt a rush of warmth in his chest. He didn't know what to say, but somehow it didn't matter. There was a natural ease between them now, a quiet understanding that hadn't been there before. "I didn't expect to see you either," he replied, smiling. "I thought you'd be at the diplomatic gathering today." Zara chuckled softly. "I needed a break from all the politics. Sometimes it's nice to just think. The stars remind me of how small we all are." She paused, her gaze returning to the stars outside. "It's easy to forget that when you're caught up in all the expectations." Aiden nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. He felt the same way. The pressure of his duties sometimes made him forget why he was even there. He had come to the station to help build bridges between species, but lately it felt like he was just going through the motions. "I know what you mean," Aiden said, his voice softer now. "Sometimes it feels like we're all just playing roles. You're the princess and I'm just a diplomat." Zara turned to face him fully, her expression thoughtful. "It's strange, isn't it? People see us as our titles, not as who we really are. They think they know everything about us based on a single label, but there's so much more to us, to everyone." Aiden felt a strange sense of relief wash over him. For the first time, Zara wasn't speaking to him as a princess or a high-ranking diplomat. She was just Zara, the person he had been thinking about ever since their last conversation, the person he had been secretly hoping to know better. "You're right," Aiden said, his voice steady. "We're more than our titles. I'm just Aiden. I didn't come here to play politics. I came here because I wanted to make a difference. But sometimes it feels like I'm just a small piece of a much bigger puzzle." Zara smiled, a small, knowing smile that seemed to reach her eyes. "I think we all feel that way at times." The conversation drifted into silence for a moment, the only sound being the soft hum of the station's systems. Aiden wasn't sure what to say next, but something inside him told him to be honest with her, to speak the truth. "I don't want to be just another diplomat," Aiden said quietly. "I don't want to just go through the motions. I want to do something real, something that matters." Zara looked at him, her expression softening. "You're already doing something real. You're here, aren't you? You're speaking up, trying to understand the people around you. That's more than most people can say." Aiden's heart skipped a beat at her words. There was something in her voice that made him feel like she truly understood him, like she was seeing him for who he really was, not just as the person he was supposed to be. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced before, and it was both comforting and unsettling at the same time. "I don't know if I'm doing enough," Aiden said, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to disappoint anyone." Zara took a step closer, her gaze never leaving his. "You won't, not if you stay true to who you are." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment it felt like everything around them disappeared. Aiden could hear the faint beating of his own heart in his ears, and he realized, with a sudden clarity, that Zara had become more than just a person he admired from afar. She had become someone he could confide in, someone he trusted. "I don't want to disappoint you either," Aiden said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. Zara's smile returned, and this time it was genuine, warm, and without any trace of the playful teasing that had been present during their first encounter. "You won't," she said simply. The air between them seemed to crackle with something unspoken, and Aiden couldn't help but wonder what it all meant. He didn't know where this connection was going, or if it was even possible. They came from different worlds, different cultures, different expectations. But in that moment, it didn't matter. All that mattered was the quiet understanding that had passed between them. As the conversation came to a natural end, Zara turned to look back at the stars. "I should get back to my duties," she said softly. "But it was nice talking to you, Aiden. More than nice, actually." Aiden nodded, his heart racing. "It was nice talking to you, too. He hesitated for a moment, unsure of what he wanted to say. "I hope we can talk again soon." Zara glanced back at him, her eyes soft and knowing. "I'd like that." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Aiden standing alone by the window. But this time, he didn't feel alone. There was something about their conversation, something about Zara, that made him feel less like a diplomat and more like a person. A person who had a connection with someone important, someone who understood him in a way no one else did. As the days went by, Aiden couldn't help but look forward to the next time they would meet. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt a sense of hope. And that was enough for now.